this is the behind the scenes, kind of my thinking behind some of the choices in this resource, or some analysis of some of the resources, some ways I might change them, some things that I think are interesting to point out. So this is just a advertising title page, just kind of having fun with this idea of this is a resource, this is a video, kind of a catchy clickbait title. Nothing really there. Overview, credit to the actual resource itself with the links. And then just the idea that first we're going to look at the schedules and the intention of why I included schedules and why those were first. I think that if my audience is new teachers, that they're going to care a lot about where we're going and what the schedule is. So that's where I would start. The plan that they provided was great. It was very specific. My thinking was that it was too much detail for myself. In my experience as an elementary teacher, there's just a lot that goes on day to day, and they're attempting to give you windows, but even in that, I think it's too specific for my style. So I included it because I think a lot of teachers would appreciate this more granular approach, but I think that something like this would be more what I would generally use. I did dive into what the links are to the Alberta Program of Studies, and there are a lot of really close links and a lot that are and some that are extra and some that are missing. So all the number outcomes are developed. Understanding of patterns and relations are not developed explicitly in the units, but they are developed in the problems and in the math tasks. But you need to analyze further which of those patterns and relations outcomes and are developed, and if it's enough for you to use it as your core resource. Shape and space is pretty well connected. The 3D figures are studied in the volume unit. However, volume itself is a grade 5 outcome. So that might be something that you can omit or use as an extension. Data, again, there's slight variations. In Alberta, we focus on tally marks, line plots, charts, and lists, whereas the SFUSD one has picture graphs, line graphs, and bar graphs. So similar, but not quite the same. So in general, I think that Alberta teacher would need to use their expertise and use this as a resource, but maybe not as their only resource. Yeah, this idea of cushions has been really effective for me. I'm wondering whether we could ravel these concepts a little bit more, whether we can spiral them. But the progression does make sense. Multiplication, division, area, all the way through. This idea of daily components I really like. It gives the teacher the flexibility, and it's kind of a checklist. Like, these are the things that I should do. This is about the amount of time I should do them, and you can be respondent to your students and to your school context. I do this. I'm going to skip the table of contents here. I do this monthly calendar. It's great. I think it's a really effective thing, especially for elementary school. Other intentions other than just the sense of time may be planning, organization, executive functioning, as well as just structure. A lot of students who are anxious really like that. I haven't tried this idea of skip counting or creating patterns, but that might be interesting. The daily schedule also, I think it's really, really a great strategy. Again, goal setting, executive functioning, even daily efficiency. Saying at the beginning of the day, this is what we're going to do, and then doing it rather than having students ask what's next, can help a lot. I started writing the digital time this year, and students have really liked that. I don't include the clock. I think that this is a little bit busy, and they're pretty small for my actual space. I actually like their schedule a lot. There's double block of math, and then double block of writers workshop, readers workshop, and then lunch, phys ed, science, end of the day. That's pretty awesome. I try to do something similar and having a writer's workshop and a reader's workshop in the morning before recess, and then my math after recess. However, with social studies and science, I find I can't really get a double math block very often. And so this is really appealing to me. And if my schedule is more consistent, maybe I would do this exact thing and then science, social alternating. But anyways, just something I thought about. I like this number of days in school idea. Really visual, really concrete. You could use money, like you could use loonies and $10 bills and $100 bills, or pennies and dimes, and then even, well, I guess quarters wouldn't really make sense, but, and then loonies. A tally would be great too, a little more abstract. I find that when you count up the days, students get a wider view of how the year has gone. A colleague of mine talked about how day 1,000 of school is in grade 5, and how, maybe you want to celebrate that even without students knowing, kind of randomly. This got me thinking that what if you just kept this going from grade 1 all the way through, or from kindergarten all the way through? And so when you came in grade 6, you had whatever, 1,000 blocks already, and then you were adding more to say how many years have you been in public school. What about a fundraiser for a bursary or a charity? A class of 2020 could donate $2,600 for a day in every school. I think it's pretty interesting to kind of think about development of these things. Skip counting's great. Number lines are awesome, especially for looking at different understandings of number. I have a clothesline number line. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it here, but it's that line. Don't have numbers on it right now, but that's just another version of the same thing that is really effective. I really like it. And then this exit question was my own strategy. This wasn't from the resource, but this is just a daily mental math thing that I find is fun and effective for the kids. Gives them a success on their way out, and allows me to challenge students that need it and work on foundations for students that need that. Math stations, this is always a strategy that I wish I employed more and can't seem to be as effective as I'd like to be. Number clash seems fine. A little simple for my grade 6s, but for grade 3 it seems good. This idea of variation and different types of games I think is what makes it effective. Close to 20, anything with dice is really interesting. I like that it's a cooperative game as well. That's, I think, important. Although, is it? I guess you're comparing. No, it's not cooperative. That's a mistake on my part. I thought it was a cooperative game. It's not. You could make it a cooperative game, though. It is interesting if you think about each roll having an average of 3. So after 4 rolls, on average, you're going to be around 12. So I think most of the time you're going to roll that 5th dice. But sometimes you'll already be over 20 if you rolled a 6 4 times in a row. So maybe there should be an option of stopping at 3. Type of thing you'd see just by playing the game. Value of words I liked. I would take out the accented N and go from 1 to 26 just for my context. I'd like to bring in other goals. Whose name is higher, lower, odd, even? Can you find 2 animals that are equal? Interesting things like that. What is the shortest word with the highest count? More questions. Manipulative exploration. This is great as well, although the objectives of just to familiarize students, I think is a little bit low level in terms of, I think that I'd want to have more objectives in terms of space and patterns and more direct benefits. Although I think the free exploration play is really beneficial, so maybe that would be one that I would just let them play in. But I would have to manage the students, because if this was available all the time, I would have a few students who would kind of always do this. Message to my teacher I think is great. I would really like to see teachers that are successful with this idea of math journals. I'm always not as successful as I'd like to, and I think that part of the reason is that I'm not as consistent as I should be with two-way communication. But opposite to the previous strategy, I think that this would be popular with some students and less popular with others, so you may need to mandate some expectations there. It was written as a one-off strategy, like write the message just at the beginning of the year, and I think that it would be strong as a continual practice strategy. And then finally, math talks. is another great strategy. More student-centered, although it's teacher-led. Good way of exploring math. I thought these dot talks were interesting. I think that I'll bring these into my classroom whenever we return. I spoke to someone the other day about this 5 here and how we recognize it. The idea is because these are 2 eyes, that's a nose, and that's the edges of the mouth. So I think that idea is really, really neat. So I ended there. I think that the resource has so much to offer. I had to end at some point, and that's kind of where I decided to end. If anything, it feels like I could have went deeper with less of the resource, but I didn't even get to any direct lessons. So in terms of length, I'm okay with it. I thought that sending teachers to the resource itself would be the way to go at that point. And that's my behind the scenes look.